Meeting the Goodyear City Council. Councilmember Holland will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance and Invocation.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please stand as a sign of respect. Bow your heads. Our military on duty here and overseas, protect them. Our firemen and policemen that guard the home front, keep them safe. The community, city, and business leaders, may they make good decisions. And special thoughts for all the refugees around the world. May they soon find homes. Amen.
Council, upon roll call vote, may convene an executive session as posted for the following, for the purpose of discussion and consultation with its attorney to receive legal advice regarding a report from outside counsel on results of internal investigation of alleged open meeting violation. I think we should start with a motion, and we'll discuss going into exec session. Is there anyone wish to submit a motion to enter exec session?
So moved.
Second.
Motion from Councilmember Souza and a second from Councilmember Antoniak. It's open for discussion on this motion. I would just like to ask, I understand the need to go into exec session on the letter to Mr. Sorcy. It's confidential. But is going into exec session necessary on the other items?
Not for me. I think it should be open.
Not for me either.
I think if there's anyone that's...
Be more specific for me, Mayor. Sorry. The letter to Mr. Sorcy.
Yeah, there's actually, we're talking about the letter to Sorcy. We're talking about the results of the investigation.
Okay.
We're talking about the letter to us is the one that needs to be in exec session, I believe. The letter to Sorcy does not.
It would be the opinion.
Okay.
Okay.
So if we can move ahead and just leave this in open session, is that agreed?
Sure.
Okay, so we have a...
Procedurally, you got a motion and a second on it.
Getting there.
All right.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to go into exec session. All those in favor of going into exec session, please signify by stating aye, please. All those...
See, I'm not sure what we're...
You're not being clear here.
I'm sorry, sir. It wasn't clear enough. The
We
exec
have a
session
motion to go into exec session.
for what part of this?
Well, we have a motion to go into exec session, period, I thought, or the whole thing.
That's a roll call vote?
Yeah. And, so, okay, we could do a roll call vote if we have to.
Yes.
Do we?
Yes.
Okay.
Let's be entirely clear here, because I'm not completely
I'm not
understanding your
either.
direction. You said you desired to speak about one thing in executive session, and that was one specific part of this, and then there's two other parts that you'd like to speak of in public, and I think we all concur to that, but there's a motion to go into executive session. Do you want to go into executive session now, speak about the letter, and then come back out and speak about the other two pieces?
I think...
Or do you want to do it in another
No, I think
order?
not. I understood that we were to go into exec session on all three subjects.
No.
And that was certainly my understanding here. But, so that was what I thought the motion was for. Is the motion for a specific?
Yes. Let me
Okay,
clarify that.
all right.
I felt that the motion to go into executive session was on item A on the agenda.
Okay.
Right. And that item, the two remaining items, would go to a public meeting after we get out of the executive session.
Can you give me some hand there, Rourke?
Yeah, I'm reading item A, and it is kind of grouped, so I think if we broke it into three parts, part A would be to discuss Mr. Woodford's opinion. Part B would be to discuss the reply to Mr. Sorcy at the Attorney General's office, and Part C would be to discuss the potential ratification of Ms. Rusing's contract. So it's my understanding, from what I'm hearing, is the council only wants to go into executive session to discuss Mr. Woodford's opinion.
Under A.
Under A. Is that the
correct.
motion?
Mayor,
Yes.
You know, this morning, Rourke, you and I talked about this because I wasn't sure about why we wanted to go into executive session for this, but you gave an explanation that I thought maybe the council might like to hear it, and then we can take our votes.
I can give you an explanation, or Mr. Woodford can give you an explanation on why he feels that you should go into executive session, since he's the attorney representing the council on this matter. Would you like to hear from Mr. Woodford?
And he was the one that suggested the executive session,
I believe.
Brad?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, yes, there is a privilege for attorney-client communications, and that privilege can only be waived when it is a group like this by a majority of this council. So unless that privilege is waived, that opinion should be delivered in executive session.
The opinion,
Yes.
and strictly the opinion. Is that correct?
Well, there's some facts that the opinion is based upon.
That's what I
But,
understood.
yes, that basically you're correct, Mayor.
Could I ask a question? Do you feel comfortable just doing A in executive session and the rest of it in open council, or would you feel
That-
more?
That's fine.
Is that okay with you?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
we're all saying the same thing?
Yeah, I think we are too.
I still don't think you are. I'm more versed to just go with what's on the agenda, go to it. We're supposed to come out and discuss items 10A and 10B, and I think that's going to make very public what discussions we have following the advice of council. It's not going to do anything other than that. If there's a debate of making these other things public, I'm willing to have that
You wanna
debate.
lay
And
the
I agree with
groundwork.
your spirit, Mayor, but I'd say let's just go into executive session as was printed on the agenda. Agree with your spirit and come back out, and if you know the facts of it, if your intent by your comments are to have the facts of the investigation that have been presented to us in confidential memos, I'm happy to disclose that at the end of the meeting. But
Yeah,
let's just
I
go into
guess,
exec.
I could go either. I guess I was concerned about doing everything twice, is having Mr. Woodford speak to us in exec session, and then we go into open session and we repeat the same thing for the public, when we could just do it for the public and us at the same time. But if there's a concern about,
Well, I don't want to go into executive session and discuss something we didn't intend to discuss, and then we have a debate in executive session about why we're in executive session, and we get into semantics back and forth, and I'm not clearly understanding your...
well, you know what we really need to do is confirm what is this motion that we have on the floor right now. And Councilmember Souza, I was unclear. I
Okay.
apologize.
Maybe I wasn't unclear too. But my motion was to go into executive session for the purpose of item A on the agenda.
3A?
Pardon me?
Right here.
3A?
3A. Which would be pursuant to ARS 38-431.03A3 for the purpose, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay.
Are we in agreement?
I didn't hear the last part. You want to go in executive session just for A then? Is that what you're saying?
That is my motion at the present time, yes.
3A.
3A.
Yeah, that's my second.
Okay, is 3A, would you define what 3A is? Is that strictly the opinion, or does that include the results of the
The way I
investigation?
read 3, I'm not going to...
Mr. Mayor, if you don't mind, as I read it, 3A is written as all three.
That's what I thought too. Yeah.
You could divide it into subparts and choose to go into executive session on only one of those subparts if you worded the motion that way. But as the motion, if the motion is 3A, it's all three items.
So we could go into exec session on all three items, or as some have indicated they want to, but maybe not a majority, we could go into exec session only on the opinion from Mr. Woodford to the council,
Correct.
and the others would be in open session. So we have two options there.
I think they have a symbiotic relationship with one another, and I think splitting them up is just getting into... I mean, Mr. Woodford is probably largely going to present his opinion based in fact, and is going to need the facts of the investigation to do that, and so I would want to reserve his ability to present us those facts that he's based his opinion on.
Okay?
Mayor?
Yes?
Rourke, I have to go back to you because you and I had a discussion about this morning.
Yes.
And I asked you what my advantages and disadvantages would be, and I've kind of presented something to you. Remember that speech you gave me? How about telling us why we would want to or not want to? That's what I was looking for.
Well, I think I would, and I hope I remember everything we spoke about this morning.
Well, close enough.
I know we spoke a little bit about privilege and how that you want to protect privilege with your attorney, that you want to have confidentiality in your conversations with your attorney, and when your attorney gives you an opinion, you want to protect that opinion and protect that privilege. And executive session provides you that opportunity to do so. And as Mr. Woodford also referenced earlier, if you waive that privilege as to your attorney's opinion, you may have waived that privilege through the whole matter. And that is the legal reason you want to protect privilege. Now, you don't have to. It is your call on whether or not you want to go into executive session on any of these matters this evening. But it's Mr. Woodford's recommendation that you do so. As far as receiving legal advice, I do recommend that be received in executive session to protect privilege. I would say, as far as the three matters, I would agree with Councilmember Antoniak. The two matters involving Mr. Woodford's opinion and his response, those are a bit symbiotic and are probably a bit difficult to separate. The third matter, the ratification of the contract, is probably easy to separate from the other two matters. The other two are pretty close relationship between the two in what he's going to speak to you about.
You're talking about A and C.
It would be A and C.
Okay.
As far as I think I stated
Yeah.
earlier, the
Okay.
response, his draft response and his opinion are pretty symbiotic. But the ratification is probably a little bit different subject matter and probably easier to separate.
Okay, why don't we get a motion just to go into exec session on
First
all,
two.
all, I don't care, all two or three, but we need a motion and I'll go with whatever you want.
What happened to the motion that was on the floor?
Well, that was unclear, that motion.
I'll remove my second for the sake of
Okay.
putting something else on the table and move.
Oh, well,
Okay,
And I'll move that we go into executive session pursuant to ARS 38-431.03A3 for the purpose of discussion and consultation with its attorney to receive legal advice regarding a report from outside counsel on results of an internal investigation of alleged open meeting violation, and receive legal advice concerning response to the Attorney General's office, excluding the ratification of the contract with
I'll
GM
second
Consulting.
that.
okay.
Mayor, I didn't quite hear the motion.
So that,
You want to come read it over there?
No, just read it there, it's close to the
Okay.
bottom.
I'll read it loud. Can you hear me, Frank?
A little bit better now, yes.
A and C, that's it, okay.
Frank, do you have your agenda in front of you?
Pardon?
I'll come over there.
I did not hear that. Repeat?
The motion, the way I read it, was to go into executive session pursuant to ARS 38-431.03A3 for the purpose of discussion and consultation with its attorney to receive legal advice regarding a report from outside counsel on results of internal investigation of alleged open meeting violation, and receive legal advice concerning response to AG's office, excluding the ratification of contract with GM Consulting.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Discussion on the motion. I think we all understand the motion now, it's clear. Could we have a roll call vote, please?
Vice Mayor Cavalier,
Aye?
Councilmember Lord,
Aye.
Councilmember Sousa,
Aye.
Councilmember Holland,
Aye.
Councilmember Antoniak.
Aye.
Councilmember Scott.
Aye.
Mayor Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Passes 7-0.
Okay, then we'll go into next session. We need to ask the people if they would depart. Okay, we join the meeting, open meeting, special meeting. We're now on paragraph 4, and that's minutes, and I'll ask for approval of the draft minutes of a regular meeting held on June 26th, another draft minutes of a regular meeting held on July 10th, and draft minutes of a special meeting held on July 24th. Okay, could we have, I think we should have a motion to approve these. We probably need to start doing that anyway.
All three or individual?
No, all three if we could.
Motion to approve all three.
I have a motion from Councilmember Scott and a second from Councilmember Souza. All those in,
No.
all those in,
That was from me. The second was from me.
oh, I'm sorry, Councilmember Antoniak. All those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the ayes have it. There are no expenditures to ratify. Opportunity now for any council member or staff to make a comment regarding a commendation of anyone. Okay, opportunity now for council member report on current events. Councilmember Holland.
This past week, I was privileged to give a presentation to the Lockheed Martin Women's Engineering Network. There were about 25 people there. It was really just great. They asked wonderful questions. A lot of things, of course, we have to kind of reach back in our memory to pull out that they were just curious of. But my main theme was how women can be successful in politics. That was a special request. So I had a really enjoyable time pulling that together, and my number one theme through all of that was education. We have to start early, get those people out there at the local, the state, and the government level, and one day we'll have a female president. That's my speech. You go, girl.
I remember those.
I don't know. It might do.
Okay, opportunity for the manager on any council-related matters to include update of legislative issues.
Not this evening.
Okay, opportunity now for any citizen to make a comment on any item not on this evening's agenda. Would anyone like to make a comment on a non-agenda item? Seeing none, we'll move to consent, and we have no consent items. We now move to the business part of our agenda. And we'll start with Rourke Massey on the providing direction to outside counsel on a response to the Attorney General regarding alleged open meeting violation.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, as you're aware, council has elected to hire an outside attorney to represent the council in this matter. He is prepared to seek direction from the council this evening to file his response to the Attorney General's inquiry with your direction. That's Mr. Brad Woodford of the law firm Moya Story, and I believe he may want to address the council on that.
I should preface your remark. I failed to say that Vice Mayor Cavalier is on the phone. Are you with us, Frank?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Welcome, Vice Mayor and Mr. Mayor. Yes, my name is Brad Woodford, and I did, at your request, conduct an investigation. That investigation is now complete. My report is in draft form, but I would request that you allow me to finalize that report and reply to the Attorney General, which I will do on Monday with the council's consent.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any comments from the public? Do I have a motion to direct Brad Woodford to file the report with the State Attorney General's office?
Mr. Mayor, move that the council direct Brad Woodford to file the report with the State Attorney General's office. So moved.
I have a motion from Councilmember Souza.
Second.
Second from Councilmember Antoniak. It's now open for discussion. Seeing none,
Just to clarify, that's going to happen by, we didn't state that necessarily in the motion, but that will happen by close of business on Monday, August, whatever that is. This coming Monday.
Right.
The 14th.
And Rourke, I do not need a roll call on this, do I?
No.
Okay. All those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, 7-0. And we'll now move to item B. Council will discuss and consider possible ratification of legal action that it may have taken place on or before March 27th in possible violation of the requirement that legal action be taken by the City Council. It is important and appropriate that I recuse myself from this particular subject. And Rourke, I don't know if we should leave it to the, it's up to you. Does the senior ranking council member assume the presiding officer, or do we need to take a vote?
No need to take a vote to appoint a presiding officer.
Okay, and I should continue until that is done, correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so we need to take a vote on who would be the presiding officer.
I nominate Councilman Souza.
Okay, I have a motion to nominate Councilmember Souza.
Second.
Second from Councilmember Antoniak. Okay, we have a motion to ask Councilmember Souza to assume the presiding officer role for the next item. which is 10B. All those in favor of that motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Would you raise your hand, please? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Okay, it's 7-0, and Dick, you got it.
Yeah. Been a long time since I've been up here.
Good luck, man. Managing us.
That's it, Mr. Massey will present.
Thank you. The item you have in front of you this evening is a ratification of the March 27, 2006 contract that was awarded to GM Consulting for retail consulting services. Just to give a little background on what a ratification is under Arizona open meeting law, if it were ultimately found by a court of law that a open meeting violation may have occurred or did occur, the statutory remedy is that the original action is declared null and void from its date of inception. Arizona statute provides that there is a remedy for that, and that is ratification. If a public body finds or suspects or feels that there possibly may have been an open meeting violation, they have the opportunity to ratify a contract. In essence, it's an insurance policy on the original action. And we are recommending that the council consider ratifying the contract in this matter. The purposes behind that, and if I'm giving too much detail, go ahead and stop me. The purposes behind that is there at least is some theory under the law. There is no case law directly on point on this matter. That any fees earned by the contractor would have to be returned as a matter of public policy. Certainly, Ms. Roosing has been employed by the city since March. It may be problematic to ask her for those funds back should there ultimately be a decision in the future by someone other than ourselves that there was, in fact, an open meeting violation. So again, tonight's action is to be considered an insurance policy and just sound legal decision to make for the protection of the city. And that would be my recommendation, to ratify the contract.
Thank you, Mr. Council. Are there any comments from the public relative to this subject? Yes, sir.
If I may. My name is Craig Martin. I'm an attorney. I am here representing Gail Roosing and her company, GR Consulting. We join in the request and recommendation that you ratify this contract, but I want to make a few comments about my perception of what's going on. First, I believe that this action is unnecessary. I say that without the benefit of knowing what your investigation determined. I wasn't here when you went into executive session, nor was anyone else, but I know that I've done my own investigation and research, and I will tell you that I cannot see how what I understood happened could be a violation of the open meeting laws. I don't see how any comment that the mayor did or didn't could be a, quote, decision, commitment, or promise. And as such, you'll have to come to your own decisions. We believe it's an unnecessary action because we do not agree that there was any violation by the mayor of any open meeting law in connection with the award of this contract. But setting that aside, even though I agree with your counsel about the recommendation to ratify this, just to be sure, I could not agree more with your counsel about the consequences of your refusal to ratify. I think it absurd to stand in front of you and say there's some risk that Gail would have to give back money when she was awarded a contract voted on by this council, signed by the city manager, and that there's some claim that it was a void contract. Quite the opposite. Let me tell you, and I hope your counsel researches the concept of promissory estoppel. What I've done is, counsel is right, there's not an Arizona case on the exact consequences of this, but there are lots of cases from a lot of other states, and they all say the same thing. If you enter into a contract as a city with somebody, and they act in good faith and rely on it, as Gail did by moving here, by buying a home here, by performing services, you cannot turn around and say, we ain't got no contract because there was a violation of open meeting laws. Quite the opposite. That contract is binding. It is, because of the concept of promissory estoppel, it is one you can't walk away from, and that's why I think all of this is somewhat unnecessary. I just want the council to know that from our standpoint, you've got a binding contract, and I'll be glad to give your lawyer lots of citations if he's interested in them that show just that. I mean, I've got cases from across the country where a school district, in violation of an open meeting law, awarded the contract to teachers, and then they said, well, we violated the law. Well, the court said teachers started performing services. They're bound by the contract. I've got cases where land was to be sold in violation of open meeting laws. And although normally the concept is a contract entered into in violation of open meeting laws is binding, when you start taking action and the person relies in good faith on it, it's a binding contract. So from our standpoint, we hope to clarify this little issue. You vote in favor of ratifying the contract, but quite frankly, it's unnecessary, and the concept that Gail would have to give money, or that this city could say we're not bound and therefore we don't have to honor a contract that's been signed, I would suggest you consider that option very carefully, because that would not be in the best interest of the city. I'll be glad to answer questions.
We appreciate your comments.
Thank you, sir.
Anybody else from the public to express opinion? If none, I'll accept the motion from the council to ratify the contract with General GM Consulting, which was approved by council on March 27, 2006.
Motion to ratify the contract, GM Consulting, which was approved by council on March 27, 2006.
I'll second.
Motion made by Councilman Scott and seconded by Vice Mayor Cavalier. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? The ayes have it, 6-0.
There's no discussion.
Big lesson, that's quickness.
I'm going to ask that question. I'm told I don't need to, but I will ask that question.
This one, is that the right?
I just, okay. Okay, we're on 9C, and council will consider authorizing the city attorney to retain outside legal counsel to investigate whether Mayor Kavanaugh's participation in any of the votes taken by the city council in connection with the contract between Ms. Rusing and the city of Goodyear violated any laws or Goodyear City Council rules, whether the city council has any legal obligation to report any violations of any laws, and to prepare any documents required to fulfill the city's reporting obligation should it have a duty to do so. Rourke, you will present. Rourke, is there any possibility that I could have a conflict of interest? I will be voting on a subject that pertains to me, although there's obviously no financial issue here.
It seems to fall outside of the realm of conflict of interest. I can read the conflict of interest law as a refresher.
My attorney would agree with that. He felt it did also.
That it did not?
Did not. require me recusing myself.
Well, conflict of interest comes into effect when an action you take as a member of the council may involve a pecuniary gain to yourself or an immediate family member.
Okay.
If you feel that there is one, then you would have a conflict of interest.
No, I don't see it. Violation.
Okay.
Okay, we're now moving to Rourke. Would you present for us, please?
Yes. My presentation will be fairly short, and then I will certainly avail myself to any questions the council may have. As a procedural matter, yesterday afternoon, 3 council members submitted in writing a request that this item be placed upon the agenda in the form that it is listed on your agenda, and that is to take those three action. Well, the one action to hire an outside attorney to investigate any allegations of a possible conflict of interest on the part of Mayor Kavanaugh. I do not have an attorney that I can recommend to you this evening, given the relatively short amount of time, but this item would authorize me to hire an outside attorney to conduct an investigation and take those 3 potential actions that are listed in the motion. With that, that would really be the end of my presentation, but I certainly am willing to answer any questions you may have about retaining outside counsel and or conflict of interest law if you have those questions.
Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mason, in view of the vote that was taken on the prior 2 issues, wouldn't that vote on those 2 issues preclude this type of motion? We've had
They can't hear you. They're asking you to move your paper.
we've had a statement by an attorney that we hired to investigate whether or not any member of this council has violated open meeting laws.
Mr. Sousa, I don't want to interrupt you, but any statements Mr. Woodford gave you outside of the open session were executive session materials.
I agree, but
Okay.
I'm just saying that we just ratified what he has presented to the council in item 1 and in item 2 too, because we just passed a vote on the contract. Now, this motion has a bearing, as I see it, on both items. And to me, the motion itself is not necessary at this particular time, in view of what the motion itself contains. It's time that we put this thing to bed, and I thought we had, we had done this. It's ridiculous to keep on nitpicking, and that's what we're doing here. It's tit for tat, as I see it. And frankly, there are 3 council members that sit here. Now, will you be kind enough to name the 3 that petitioned you to put this on the agenda?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, that is, of course, a public record. They were Councilmember Scott, Councilmember Holland, and Councilmember Lord.
Thank you.
Mayor?
Before can I ask, are there any public comments on this subject? Okay. Yes, sir.
I am speaking solely as Gail's attorney, not yours, and if there were a violation, it would not be her fault. However, for this council to spend money on this is, to me, a waste of money and unnecessary. Anybody who understands real estate would know that Gail came here and bought a house. Buyers don't pay commissions, sellers do. Gail could not have paid any money to the mayor or his wife in connection with buying a house, so there is no pecuniary interest in her buying a house. The seller paid money to the mayor's wife. Beyond that, there's lots of other problems which make it so patently obvious that there could be no wrongful conduct by the mayor, which, in light of all the publicity and things that have been unnecessary and what's been happening to Gail here, so unfortunate, that this is carrying a problem on that should have been that wasn't a problem and should have been put to bed long ago. And it is so obvious that there's no conflict. I would be surprised that the city would waste taxpayers' money on hiring a lawyer to come to that conclusion. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Hall?
I've heard what Craig said. However, I don't think we know exactly what's been going on, and we have read in the paper that there are issues there. This may be a necessary thing to build the credibility of our mayor back up, because a lot of things have gone on in the newspapers, and this would clear the air. We would find out exactly where we stand, and he would know too, and the public would know. It's what the public thinks. We work for the public. Thank you.
Councilmember Scott?
Yeah, my name was one of the names on there. Let me just tell you what my thought process was. First of all, if you read the paper, I guess you do, you're local, are you? Southwest section of Arizona Republic. There's a survey going on over the past week. And based on that survey, I don't know what the numbers are now, but 75% of the people surveyed thought it was a conflict of interest. I got 6, 7, 8 calls, I don't know how many, from constituents asking me if I thought it was a conflict of interest. My answer is, I'm not an attorney, but we'll get a legal opinion on it. So I asked our attorneys for a legal opinion. They did not feel they could give us that legal opinion. Hence, this is on the agenda. That's it, period. That's it.
Councilmember Lord?
Well, that was my same feelings, and thank you for expressing them so well. I was called in San Diego by some outside source telling me about this poll. And when I looked at it before I left home tonight, 80.15% say it's a conflict. 19.85% say no conflict out of around 262 voters. It just shows that, yes, people are talking about that, and yes, they are questioning that. And I was concerned because I went to you and I went to some others and said, well, give me an answer. That's all I need to know. We couldn't get the answer. So it leaves it. Do we want to leave this? And I understand we've gone through a lot. I respect your opinion, Councilman Souza, but we'd like to wrap this up. Hey, you weren't accused. I was. Let me tell you, I would have liked to wrap this up a long time ago. I would have preferred the mayor not charge us, but it happened. So I've had to struggle through this very emotional time with my family and what's going on, and never having been given the opportunity even to defend myself before the motion was sent through. So I'm just saying this is something that's left over that the public perceives. It's a perception. If you want to take the responsibility, the council, to go ahead and not investigate this, and then later someone does it because there's interest in the newspaper and they find out, by golly, it was a conflict of interest, but the council decided they were going to step back and stay out of it. So that's the choice you have. At this point, we don't have the information. Is it or isn't it?
Councilmember Antoniak?
I have a question for our attorney, because I'm struggling with our agenda item here.
I can't hear.
At everybody's discretion, he can't hear. Did you hear Georgia talking?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you can hear me if I speak up loud.
Yes.
Okay, so here's my question for you, City Attorney. Mr. Massey, if we are to hire an outside counsel, what obligation does an outside counsel have? 1. 2, what ability does an outside counsel have, specifically in a legal term? To me, they're going to go out, they're going to look at stuff, they might turn over rocks, they might look at the newspaper. That's as far as they're going to get. I'm not necessarily saying anybody's necessarily guilty of a true conflict in the law, as Mr. Martin alluded to us this evening. But what I'm asking is to those two questions, and then my follow-up would be is that really the appropriate person to be asking these questions? Is it our duty ethically, or Is it our responsibility to be asking these questions of ourselves? Yes. It's our duty to be asking ourselves these questions. Is it our duty to hire an attorney to come inside, do another investigation, and report back to the same 7 individuals to then determine what to do with the information at that point? I don't know. I don't want to be the judgment. I don't want to be the judge and jury here. And I have concern with putting this out there. This makes us have an attorney, just as we did this evening, come back, go into executive session, agree, disagree with opinions one way or another, and then make a judgment call.
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Tony.
Questions are in front of you that I posed at the beginning.
Okay. I'll start with the first question, and then you may have to steer me back on the second question to make sure I'm clear on what you're asking. The question you have in front of you this evening, I think, would charge the outside counsel with what his duties are in this matter, hence the 3 items. One would be to conduct a thorough and complete investigation of the matter. 2, to determine whether there is a duty on behalf of the city to, if there were a violation, report. And 3, as I read it, the action would be, 1, if you find a matter that's a violation. 2, you determine that there is a duty on the part of the city to report. 3, to go report. A little bit different than Mr. Woodford's, how he was approached or how he was retained. So if the council adopted the motion as written, that's how I interpret that attorney's instructions. Because I understand that it is difficult to be in your role on the other end when that attorney may come back and make his findings, whatever they may be, and having to serve in a judge and jury role on that. I don't think necessarily you want to be in that role either.
But this council would have to agree with his letter that might go out to an outside person.
Well, it depends on how you charge him.
Excuse me,
I'm sorry to interrupt. It depends on how you write or pass the motion this evening. Yes, you could pass it that way. You could pass Section 1, and I agree with you. That's how it would happen. If you pass all 3 sections, I think you're appointing independent counsel to take whatever action he deems is fit.
But and it's going to be that person's sole discretion, sitting in a private office, to determine whether or not we have a duty to report. And if he or she determines that we do not have a duty to report, and whether or not 1 or all 7 of us agree or disagree with him or her, then the document could sit in a shredder and never be published.
No, because under Arizona statute, if you ask an attorney's opinion on conflict of interest, it's a matter of public record. Statutorily, it's not an attorney-client privilege document.
So that person would have to come back and file that with the city clerk.
With the city clerk, and it's a public record at that point.
I'm still torn about the authority of a private counselor and coming into City Hall and asking the questions and not being able to get answers one way or another. And I have concern about while they may be filing an opinion, it's not a very the process is not open to disclosure as much as it might need to be in order to ensure the public trust.
Well, we certainly can discuss how you would want this to occur. This is one proposed method. The motion certainly could reflect any other method you chose. If you ask an attorney for an opinion in this matter, under statute, it appears that it needs to be filed with the city clerk's office.
Who ultimately has the legal responsibility to determine whether or not there's a conflict of interest?
Jurisdiction on a conflict of interest lies with the Attorney General's office or the county attorney's office of the county in which the alleged violation occurred.
Okay.
Councilmember Souza?
Mr. Massey, once this information has been developed by the outside attorney, and he makes this presentation to the council, what would you suggest that we do with that information, pro or con?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Souza, I think that really goes to the point of what is your duty and what is your role as a public official. One of my issues and why we would recommend outside counsel is a potential conflict of interest as your attorney in taking a role or taking a position that could be adverse to any particular member of this council. I represent you as a board or as a whole. So that is why one of the proposals to you is to have that outside attorney give an independent opinion on what your duty as a board is.
But if the opinion comes back and let's say it's against the mayor, what do we do with that? We can't replace the mayor because of his actions as a council. That has to be done by his constituency, the city of Goodyear.
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Sousa, that's certainly correct. You do not have that power to
So
remove the mayor.
what are we gaining here by going through this motion?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Sousa, presumably the purpose of the request was to have an outside opinion on whether or not there was in fact a conflict of interest.
So we're gonna pay $5,000 or $10,000 to an outside source, outside attorney, to go back and tell us, well, yes he is, or no he isn't. And then what do we do with it? We sit with it. Thank you.
Excuse me, I thought I understood that to be that information, it would come back to us as a recommendation or of his opinions, or just like what we just received from our attorney. And then we make the decision on what we want to do with it, or it becomes public record. But then, if there truly is a violation and we want to clear our city's name or clear our mayor's name, it will go to the Attorney General.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, or Councilmember Holland, yes and no. I agree with you. It would depend on how you charge this attorney, what his duty is. If his duty is to simply investigate the matter and file an opinion, under statute, he would investigate the matter, file his opinion with the city clerk's office as an open public record.
That's not the way this is written.
The way it is written, and the motion has not yet been made, the way it is written would be to charge that attorney with conducting an investigation, writing an opinion, making an opinion to you, or determining what the duty of the city council or the city as a whole has as far as reporting, if there were in fact a duty to report, to do so without coming back to council.
Sure.
So it depends on what your motion is. Those are the options, or any other options you may determine may be appropriate on this subject matter this evening.
Frank, you're up.
Okay, number one, a question. The conflict of interest, procedures relating to conflict of interest, city council rules of procedure relating to a conflict of interest. What evidence do we have that any conflict of interest existed? Based on what? What are we talking about? Conflict of interest on what? Was Gail Rusing sharing her proceeds from the city with the mayor? Is this the allegation? There has to be some reason why there is an investigation. That's my first question. And is it over this real estate transaction? That's my second question.
Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor Cavalier, I don't have any facts to share with you this evening. I presume the request for the investigation of the conflict of interest is involved or relates from the article in the Arizona Republic, I believe a week and a half ago, that involved a real estate transaction. But the attorney would be charged with determining what facts are appropriate or are relevant.
Because of the real estate transaction, is that the reason?
Vice Mayor Cavalier, that's my presumption.
I'm sorry, what was the answer?
I presume, but it's fairly open-ended.
Well, let me just say something here. Then I have a statement here that I would like to make concerning that, and that is the Kavanaugh Realty is in the business in Goodyear, in the business of representing as an agent for the sale and purchase of homes, and that's his business, and that's his wife's business, and that he has a right to do that business. Now, as far as conflict of interest, let me take this one step further. Through a conflict, if this is the conflict of interest that the council is concerned about, or other people in the community are concerned about, what about people, staff members, or other people who work for the city of Goodyear, who may have purchased property through Kavanaugh Realty, or who may have sold property through Kavanaugh Realty? And then let's come to me. myself, I used Kavanaugh Realty to sell a house in Pebble Creek that was mine. And then later, I purchased a house from Linda through an agent from Kavanaugh Realty, a condo. And then later than that, a year later, I sold that condo through Kavanaugh Realty. I am receiving a stipend through the city of Goodyear. Now, if this is a conflict of interest, then I think I need to be investigated along with the Kavanaugh. I think this is unfair and unreasonable, and I think that furthermore, we don't take into consideration what we're talking about when we accuse the mayor, or if the mayor has been accused by anyone, outside or inside council or outside. If it was an outside person or a survey or whatever was done, if the council members don't have the bones to stand up for their mayor, then I'm concerned about that council member. And for the past 20 years, this mayor has done more for the city of Goodyear than any mayor that I can think of. I don't understand why there's this group of adversaries that appear to be out after the mayor. This seems the mayor himself is conservative. He's the mayor that demonstrates that he is progressive, and he's done a lot for the city, and he is a strong leader. Now it appears we have some adversaries out there that have leftist notions that something has to be done to investigate this mayor, because let's get the mayor. And I'm sorry, but I cannot go along with this, and I cannot go with why we are going to open this investigation now, when back in July, when the mayor asked for an investigation of our contractor and any allegations that might have him involved with her, that the council turned that down because it was a waste of funds, of taxpayers' funds. And if the council felt that way back in July, then I'm going to follow through, even though I didn't vote that way. But the council voted that was a waste of taxpayers' funds, and I'll go along with the council. I think it's a waste of taxpayers' funds, and I will be voting against an investigation, which makes no sense at all. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
This council is talking about,
State your name for the record.
my name again is Craig Martin of the law firm of Jayberg & Wilk. I'm a Phoenix lawyer. This council is talking about hiring a lawyer to get an opinion about whether there is a conflict of interest. My name is Craig Martin. I'm an Arizona licensed attorney. I have been an attorney licensed in this state for 30 years. In my opinion, there was no conflict of interest. You got an opinion. Made it in public court. Now, what does that do? One attorney can give you one opinion. Some other attorney may, but I doubt, would come up with a different opinion. I do very much appreciate the comments of our council members who said why they wrote the letter, and I do. I do understand that. But I heard about a survey. What if I told you I voted 200